The sinking of the RMS Titanic is perhaps the most well-known shipwreck of modern times, and is one of the deadliest shipwrecks in history, as over 1,500 people lost their lives on the evening of April 14th and early morning hours of April 15th, 1912, when the unsinkable ship struck a large iceberg in the northern Atlantic Ocean in international waters, approximately 400 miles offshore of the coast of Newfoundland. The iceberg strike ruptured the ship's hull and caused the Titanic to list for several hours as it sank into the deep, freezing waters below. The tragic fate of the Titanic and the many souls aboard the vessel have been extensively documented in various media throughout the years, and director and deep-sea enthusiast James Cameron's 1997 film about the sinking, Titanic, was so popular it became the first film to gross over $1 billion during its initial run in theaters. Due to the manner that the ship had sunk, experts speculated that the hull of the ship was likely still in one piece. However, despite the location of the sinking being well documented since the night of the horrific incident, this speculation would remain just that for over 50 years following its sinking, as the vessel would ultimately come to rest deep within an underwater canyon on the seafloor, approximately 12,000 feet below the water's surface. Due to the wreckage resting at such great depths, the water pressure at this depth is nearly 6,500 pounds per square inch, which makes reaching the wreckage a complicated and potentially dangerous affair. The wreckage was finally reached and rediscovered on September 1st, 1985, where it was confirmed to have in actuality split in two near the surface, as the two main segments of the separated hull rest a little over a half a kilometer from each other. These main segments of the Titanic's hull are surrounded by a debris field approximately 5 miles by 3 miles wide, which contains smaller fragments of the ship that were flung from the vessel as the segments of its hull plummeted towards the surrounding seabed. The objects scattered across the debris field range from smaller fragments of the ship's structure to various pieces of furniture from within the ship's interior. In the years following its discovery, the wreckage of the Titanic has been visited numerous times by researchers and historians, and more recently, tourists as well, as accessing the site has become significantly easier over the years, as submersible technology has continued to improve in the years following the wreckage's discovery in 1985. However, much like another Atlantic shipwreck I've covered on my channel previously, the Andrea Doria, the wreckage of the RMS Titanic has begun to deteriorate and collapse as time has passed, and this process has even been accelerated further due to being struck by submersibles visiting the site, most notably in 2019, where a research submersible that was filming for an upcoming documentary with 2 people on board collided with part of the hull's wreckage, which left a rusty gash across the sub's hull. The operators of this submersible reported that the collision with the wreckage was largely due to the notoriously strong Atlantic currents pushing the sub into the wreckage. On Sunday, June 18, 2023, a 22-foot tourist submersible owned and designed by Ocean Gate Expeditions named Titan was loaded with the 5 passengers that would be journeying to the Titanic's wreckage within it for the day's expedition. Passage aboard the Titan was not cheap and was priced at a staggering $250,000 per person for passage to see the wreckage. Amongst the 5 men aboard the sub that day were the father and son duo, 48-year-old Shahzada Dawood and 19-year-old Suleiman Dawood, British residents and relatives of one of the wealthiest families in their native Pakistan, and the pair were the only people aboard the Titan without any previous deep-sea submersible diving experience. However, this would be far from the case for another of the sub's passengers, a 77-year-old Frenchman named Paul-Henri Nargeolet, who had made at least 35 previous submersible trips to the wreckage and was responsible for the recovery of several iconic relics from the ship over the course of his many dives to the site. Also aboard the submersible was a 58-year-old British man named Hamish Harding, who notably had visited outer space the previous June in 2022 aboard one of billionaire Jeff Bezos's Blue Origin tourist rockets, and also notably held the world record for the longest period of time spent in the deepest part of the ocean aboard a submersible to his name as well. Rounding out the crew aboard the Titan that day was the founder and CEO of OceanGate, the operators of the submersible, a 61-year-old man named Stockton Rush, who would be the operator of the submersible for the trip. The Titan itself was a unique submersible, as it was the only 5-passenger submersible that was capable of reaching depths of up to 13,000 feet in the entire world. The sub was primarily controlled by Stockton from inside the vessel with a modified video game controller, specifically a Logitech F710 wireless PC controller, as was shown off in previous photos that had been posted online by Stockton Rush. While this method of control might seem unusual to many, video game controllers are used for a variety of applications, one of which being as a means of controlling vehicles, as Xbox controllers are used aboard US Navy submarines to control photonic masts, as they offer a compact control solution that has replaced the larger, clunkier controllers that had been used previously, with similar or even better functionality, although they aren't used to actually steer the submarines. The Titan was equipped with 4 electric propulsion thrusters that could reach a speed of up to 3 knots, and a window on one of the sub's caps for viewing the exterior, and was also equipped with several safety systems, including detachable ballasts, a balloon for ascension, sandbags that were attached to the craft that were held in place by a material that would dissolve after a number of hours submerged in the water, which would cause the sub to rise, and 96 hours worth of life support available on board for the 5 passengers in case of emergencies. Also notably, some of these safety systems were designed to engage even without input from the crew aboard, such as the sandbags, in case they should fall unconscious during a voyage. The Titan was not equipped with any navigation equipment on board, however, as the submersible was instead guided to the site of the Titanic's wreckage by a support ship on the surface, the Polar Prince, who tracked the Titan's location in relativity to the Titanic's wreckage and texted directions to the Titan to follow in order to reach it. Furthermore, the Titan was also fitted with systems that monitored the hull's structural integrity, a necessity for the vessel, as repeated exposure to the extreme pressures of the deep sea environment affects a sub's structural integrity with each dive, and the Titan had completed 13 dives to the Titanic over the course of 2021 and 2022. On Sunday, June 18th, 2023, after launching the Titan from aboard the support ship, the submersible began to descend towards the wreckage of the Titanic. Approximately 1 hour and 45 minutes into their 2-hour descent to the wreckage site, after receiving a transmission from the Titan at 11:15 a.m., the Polar Prince lost track of the whereabouts of the Titan. However, due to the submersible's unconventional navigation system, this disappearance did not immediately raise a great deal of concern from aboard the support ship, as the previous year, the Titan had lost contact with the Polar Prince for 2.5 hours on one voyage. However, after the Titan sent no further navigation pings to the Polar Prince, the Titan further failed to resurface at its expected return time at 4:30 p.m., and at 7:10 p.m. that evening, the Titan was reported as missing to the U.S. Coast Guard by the Polar Prince. A search for the missing submersible was then launched immediately, and officials were optimistic that with 96 hours of life support available to the crew aboard the Titan, that if they were able to locate the sub quickly, the passengers could potentially be rescued with their lives intact. An extensive search of the seabed and the frigid Atlantic waters surrounding the Titanic wreckage was undertaken. However, search teams were unable to locate the craft on Monday, June 19th, a trend that would continue over the following 2 days, Tuesday, June 20th, and Wednesday, June 21st. By Thursday, June 22nd, the search for the missing sub grew increasingly desperate, as the 96 hours afforded to the Coast Guard to locate the craft was nearly up, and public concern for those aboard began to rapidly mount, as the public waited with bated breath to see whether the fate of the missing submersible would result in a miraculous rescue or tragedy. As the hours of the 22nd passed by, hope for the former outcome began to quickly diminish, and in the early afternoon of June 22nd at 1:18 p.m., the U.S. Coast Guard announced that it had located a debris field of fragmented remains that had indeed belonged to the Titan. The scattered debris field and the condition of the located pieces of the sub suggested that it had been destroyed in an implosion during its descent, as a result of its structure violently folding inward, caving in on itself, and instantly killing all 5 men aboard over the course of less than a second. Later that day, the U.S. Navy publicly confirmed that they had detected an underwater implosion or explosion in the approximate vicinity of the discovered debris field on Sunday, June 18th, and had passed this information along to the U.S. Coast Guard upon learning of the ongoing search. Due to the recent nature of the tragic implosion, as of the time of making this video, official investigations are still ongoing. However, the likely cause of the implosion was simply due to a weakening of the vessel's structural integrity from repeated exposures to the high pressures of deep waters, and it suffered documented structural weaknesses in the years previously. The Titan was rebuilt in 2018 after its structure had deteriorated to the point where it could only withstand underwater pressures at less than 10,000 feet of depth. However, following the rebuild, it was again re-rated to withstand depths of up to 13,000 feet. It is likely that due to the repeated usage of the sub over the previous years, in combination with the carbon fiber build of the pressure capsule, a material that loses strength under pressure, the hull of the sub could not withstand the deep sea pressure, which caused the structure to fail and rapidly implode. In wake of the news of the implosion, several former passengers described many of the components as clearly homemade, as the ballasts were built using PVC piping, and the lights on the craft were acquired from a Camping World retail store. And of course, there was the $30 modified Logitech controller used to steer the vessel. Due to the wreckage of the Titanic being located in international waters, the vessel was not subject to any regulation from the US or Canadian Coast Guard. What exactly happened during that split second during the men's descent will likely remain unknown, but if there is any significant revelations about this incident in the future, I will keep you all posted. So if you haven't subscribed already, you should consider doing so. Thank you all for watching.